that according to World Malaria Report of the year 2023, India has been able to reduce its malarial cases by 30%, whereas India has also reduced the death caused by malaria by 34%. And this reduction in the year 2023 has been achieved from 2021 levels. Now, globally, India accounts for about 1.4% of total malarial cases, whereas in terms of death, India only accounts for 0.9% of total global death, which is caused by this malarial disease. Now, why are we discussing this topic? It is because UPSC in GS Paper 2 syllabus, it highlights issues relating to development and management of social sector and services, especially with focus on the issue of health. Hence, we have also curated a practice question on this particular malarial disease because a similar question which was asked in the year 2017, it appeared because the Zika virus was in news back then. But before solving this model question, let us first know more about what is this malarial disease. Now, this malarial disease is a life-threatening disease which is caused by parasites. Now, this type of disease, it is transmitted in different persons by two different methods. The first method is that when an infected mosquito, which is usually a female Anopheles mosquito, it bites a person, and if that infected mosquito, which contains malarial parasite, it is then transmitted into persons, thereby causing the malarial disease. Whereas on the other hand, this type of transmission can also happen because of blood contamination. Because our red blood cells, they carry this malarial parasite. And when an infected blood, it is transmitted from one person to another, it can also cause this malarial disease. Now, the parasites, the causing parasites, it is of 5 different species. And among these 5 species, the Plasmodium falciparum as well as Plasmodium vivax, it is the highest causing parasites which result into malaria. And as far as India is concerned, over 40% of malarial case, they can be attributed solely to this vivax parasite. Hence, you can understand what is the load of these two parasites in terms of causing malarial infections. Now, what are the symptoms when a person is infected with malaria? He or she can show. These symptoms, it includes fever, muscle aches, fatigue, as well as other symptoms such as sweats or headache. Now, how can you diagnose this particular disease? They can only diagnose by undergoing blood tests. Now, vaccines for this kind of disease is also available in the market. The most popular vaccine is called Mosirix, which is this kind of a vaccine. Whereas on the other hand, Matrix X is also another popular vaccine. Now, in terms of malaria, India, it wants to achieve malaria-free India by the year 2027. Whereas on the other hand, India wants to eliminate malaria by the year 2030. Hence, you can see the amount of cases in India is reducing gradually. And this has been attributed to various efforts which has been undertaken by the government. Now that we know more about this malarial disease, let us solve the model question. With reference to malaria, consider the following statements. The first statement, it says that the malaria, it spreads only through the bites of infected female Anopheles mosquito. Now we know for sure this statement is incorrect because the transmission of malaria, it can happen with mosquito bites in addition with blood contamination, which can happen through contaminated red blood cells. Now the second statement, it says that Vivax malaria, it accounts for more than 1/3 of malarial cases in India. Again, this statement is correct because Vivax malaria, it causes about 40% of total malarial cases in India. Whereas the third statement, it says that India, aims to be malaria free by the year 2030. Now, as I've already highlighted, India wants to be malaria free by 2027 and it wants to eliminate and not become malaria free by the year 2030. Hence, this third statement is incorrect as the correct option should have been 2027. Now, how many of the above statements is or are correct? From this above discussion, we can safely conclude that only option 2 is correct. Hence, here option A is the right answer. Whereas the PYQ is concerned, here option C was the correct answer. Now let us move to the second article of the day, which appeared in page 14 of the Hindu newspaper. Now this article, it reports that the Indian Navy, it is organizing the exercise MILAN, which is a naval exercise and it consists of many countries. Thereby, this is a multilateral exercise. Now various type of exercise which India participates or conducts has been in news in entire year. And it is also an important topic from prelim centric discussion. Because GS paper 2 syllabus, it also highlights various groupings that affect India's interest. Further, as you can see, in the year of 2017 itself, a question appeared on Indian Ocean Naval Symposium. Hence, a similar question has been curated on various military exercises which India participates with other countries. But before solving this model question, let us understand what are the few popular military exercises that India participates with different countries. Now, the first exercise which has been in news is called Lamitier exercise, in which the nation of Seychelles, it participates with India. Whereas Mitra Shakti exercise, it is held together with the nation Sri Lanka. While on the other hand, Austro-Hind exercise, it is conducted with Australia, and Sampriti exercise, it is conducted with Bangladesh. Now India, it is also involved in a military exercise with China, which is called Hand in Hand. Whereas on the other hand, the Prabal Dostyak military exercise, it is conducted with help of Kazakhstan. Hence you can see there are important other military exercises which is equivalent, which is held with Maldives, whereas nomadic elephant, which is held together with Mongolia. Whereas Al-Naga exercise, it is held together with Oman, while on the other hand, the Surya Kiran exercise, it is held with Nepal. Now that we have solved this practice or we have know more about this joint military exercise, let us solve the practice question. Now this question, it asks us to consider following pairs. Now the first pair, it says that Al-Naga military exercise, it is held with India as well as Kyrgyzstan. Now we know that Al-Naga exercise is held with Oman and not Kyrgyzstan, hence pair 1 is incorrect. Whereas Prabal Dostyak military exercise, it is held with Oman, and this is also incorrect because it is held with Kazakhstan. Now the third pair, it says that Sampriti exercise is held with Nepal. Now this is again incorrect because it is not held with Nepal but rather with Bangladesh. Whereas on the other hand, the fourth military exercise, which is Surya Kiran, it is held with Nepal and not Sri Lanka. Hence, this exercise is also incorrect. Now, which of the following pair is or are correctly matched? Hence, we can say none of the options are correctly matched, and this is curated in a wrong manner. Hence, I'll say none of the exercise is correctly matched. Hence, option D is the right answer. Further, the answer to this PYQ is option B. Now, let us move to the third article of the day, which appeared in page 15 of the Hindu newspaper. Now, this particular news article, it highlights that the Conference of Parties and its 28th meeting, it is underway in the city of Dubai. And the first day of this meeting, the members country, they have agreed to operationalize what is known as loss and damage fund. Now, what is loss and damage? This loss and damage, it is referred to an irreversible damage which has been caused by effects of climate change. For example, you have a cultural monument at the seashore itself. But because of climate change, what has happened is a rise in sea level. So naturally, the seawater will come into that protected monument, thus destroying not just its cultural value but also its structural integrity. Now you can make a building which is a normal building in an again. However, you cannot reconstruct a cultural monument again without erasing its cultural significance. Hence, this kind of a damage, it is irreversible in nature. And this is what loss and damage is all about. So, to compensate various member countries as against loss for this loss and damage, a different fund, which is loss and damage fund, has been created in the last meeting, that was COP27, which was held in the city of Sharm el Sheikh. Now, this city is located in Egypt. Now, we have curated a practice question on this loss and damage fund itself, because UPSC in the year 2016 it asked questions related to UNFCCC meeting in Paris, which was held in 2015. However, before solving this model question, let us know more about what is this loss and damage fund all about. Now, as I've already highlighted, loss and damage, it is referred to an irreversible change. Now, this irreversible change, it happens due to negative consequences of climate change. Now, the demand to establish a separate fund for compensating for loss and damage, it has arisen, or it is a 3-decade old demand. However, the announcement to formulate this loss and damage fund, it happened in the COP 27th meeting, which was held last year in the city of Sharm el Sheikh. This meeting was held in the year 2021. Now, what forced UNFCCC to constitute a separate fund for loss and damages? Because developing countries, particularly the countries which are located around the ocean, that are SIDS countries, which are small island developing states, they have demanded a separate loss and damage fund. Because according to them, in a matter of just 2 decades, these countries, they have lost around $525 billion worth of GDP. And this loss has been solely attributed by these countries due to negative effects of climate change. Further, by establishing the loss and damage fund, this fund will be managed by World Bank in an interim manner. And this has been provided for a temporary period of 4 years. Now, who will benefit from this particular fund? Now, this particular fund has been opened to all developing countries. Now, who will make contributions to this loss and damage fund? Now, every country in the world can provide for contributions to this loss and damage fund in a voluntary manner. So, there's no obligation on a particular country to provide for funds for this loss and damage fund. However, handful of developed countries, they have already pledged their support for this loss and damage fund. For example, UAE and Germany, they have promised $100 million to this loss and damage fund. Whereas US, on the other hand, it has promised about $17 million. While the United Kingdom, it has promised about $50 million. whereas Japan, it has promised $10 million. However, the largest contributor to this loss and damage fund is the European Union, because European Union, it has promised about $145 million of fund to this loss and damage fund, which is over and above the contribution made by Germany. Now, after we have done or dealt with the loss and damage fund, let us solve the practice question. Now, with reference to loss and damage fund, consider the following statements. Now, this fund was first announced at the UN Climate Change Conference, which was held in Paris. Now, naturally, this statement is incorrect, as I've already highlighted that this fund was announced in the year of 2022, and it was announced by COP27, which was held in Sharm el Sheikh. Now, the second statement, it says that the Green Climate Fund would be the host and regulator of this fund. This second statement again is incorrect, because in an interim manner, it is the World Bank which will look after this loss and damage fund. Now, the third statement, it says that the payments to the fund have been delineated and every developed country has to contribute equally. Now, again, as I've already highlighted, that every country in the world, and not just developing countries, they will be contributing to this fund, and they will be contributing in a voluntary manner. Hence, no country has to mandatorily contribute, which makes this third statement also incorrect. Hence, according to our discussion, option D is the correct answer, as none of the above statements are correct. Now, what was the answer of this PYQ of the year 2016? Now, option B was the correct answer to this PYQ. Now, with this, let us move to the last prelim-centric article of the day, which appeared in page 10 of the Hindu newspaper. Now, recently, the Broadcast Regulation Bill, it was introduced by Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. And this bill, it extends the regulation of broadcast beyond television, and it will also include OTT content, online news, as well as current affairs. Hence, you can see this broadcast regulation bill, it broadens the ambit of broadcast regulation in India. Now, why are we dealing this particular article? Now, this article, it highlights a bill which is already in a formulating stage. Hence, we have curated a practice question on bodies which regulate broadcasting industry. For example, this is a News Broadcasting Standards Authority. And why have we curated this particular question? It is because UPSC in the year 2018, it asked a question on Food Safety and Standards Act. Further, a Food Safety and Standards Authority of India was also dealt with in this previous year question. Hence, let us know more about how this broadcast regulation in India occurs and what are the main provisions of this broadcast regulation bill. Now, the broadcast regulation bill, which was brought forward by the government, it has few features. For example, this bill, it consolidates and modernizes the broadcast regulation in India. And it also brings a single legislative framework to deal with this broadcast regulation. Further, this bill, it carries contemporary definitions and future ready provisions, which will make this bill relevant for coming years. Further, this bill, it also strengthens the self-regulatory regime, because if the government, it intends to regulate broadcast in a comprehensive manner, it will invite allegations of censorship. Hence, regulation of broadcasting industry is best in the hands of these industry players themselves. Further, this bill, it also brings a differentiated program code and advertisement code. And it treats different advertisers and programming companies in a different manner. Further, this bill, it also invites provisions which should make broadcast accessible to persons who are disabled. Hence, you can see this broadcast regulation bill, it aims to introduce inclusion in the broadcasting industry. Further, this bill it also provides for infrastructure sharing, platform services, and right of way access. And this provision it helps to provide the broadcasting industry with a services or infrastructure that they can borrow from other rival broadcasters. And this will create a cheaper and more efficient broadcast network. Further, this bill it also provides statutory penalties and fines in case of violation of provisions of this bill. And this bill it and these penalties they are provided in an equitable manner, because larger the broadcast company, the more will be fines if they violate the provisions of this bill. Now, let us solve the practice question which we have curated on News Broadcasting Standards Authority. Now, the first statement it asks us to consider statements regarding news regulation in India. Now, the first statement it says News Broadcasting Standards Authority is a statutory body which issues guidelines with regulation of media in India. Now, this statement is incorrect because this NBSA is not a statutory body. Rather, the News Broadcaster and Digital Association they have curated a self-regulatory body, hence it is an industry body. Now, this body it regulates or issues guidelines with regulations to social media. Whereas the second statement it says that News Broadcasting Standards Authority has the power to fine television channels in case of violation of this guideline. Now, this statement itself is correct because although this is an industry related self regulatory body, however, this body it is also endowed with provisions to fine the errant television channels. Hence, from this above discussion, we can safely say that option B was the right answer. Whereas, as far as 2018 PYQ is concerned, here option A was the correct answer.